Hey everyone, in light of the push for legalization of marijuana in Canada, as you've probably seen already, especially if you pay attention to my videos because I've done quite a few of them in the past already, you can check them out by using the search option in my YouTube channel. Just type in marijuana and you'll see that I've done probably over half a dozen already relating to this push for legalization. And it's not that I am against legalization. Hey, I'm a libertarian. I believe, of course, you should be able to smoke, grow, cultivate, and distribute pot however you see fit. Hey, it's a victimless, it's not even a crime, but the government calls it a crime, but there's no victim involved in growing, consuming, or distributing a plant that has not been shown to cause any harm or deaths to anybody. I mean, when's the last time you've ever heard of an article where someone OD'd on marijuana, right? What they do? Eat themselves to death? But what is most disturbing, and there's a lot of things to be concerned with in regards to this push for legalization, because it seems like the federal liberals are looking to create more legislation, to expand government, to expand the roles of police force, to expand police budgets, to crack down on the legalization of a plant. Like I say, I've already given up trying to wrap my head around the fucking kind of bullshit logic that they put forth and present as to why you need more increased resources, more increased government for something that you're going to make legal. Common sense dictates or tells you that it should be the opposite, right? But we're dealing with government here, folks, so up is down, in is out, black is white. Headline out of CBC News, the Fifth Estate. Like flipping a coin, why it's so hard to test drivers for pot. Federal government warned not to waste millions on testing, experts say is flawed. Boy, I wish the media and the experts were out there defending alcohol consumers while MAD was busy lobbying the government to increase more and more authoritarian measures, restrictions, and criminal impositions onto people who just happen to have a drink or two and drive their vehicle. Yeah, we're not talking about drugs. We're not talking about alcoholics. We're not talking about those people, that small segment of the population that don't give a fuck about laws and go out there, these habitual drunks, they go out there, get drunk out of their fucking mind, get behind the wheel and, you know, maybe kill a family of 2 or 3 or 4. Now, we're all against those people, and those people should be dealt with accordingly. And yes, it should be very heavy-handed. You know, if you take the lives or cause injury to other people, yes, you need to suffer as a consequence, as a result of your actions. But preemptive and collective punishments and mandatory minimums, which is what the government has been doing, that gradual creep, that never-ending escalation of not just fines, but now criminal impositions and jail time, having to go through massive increases in your insurance. If you're a truck driver like myself, having your entire career ended as a result. Like I personally, my personal experience, I had a few beer on my ATV while I was riding a trail in rural New Brunswick. But what has happened? What has been a direct result and consequence of this constant push? Like I say, from mostly women's groups, or feminists, or MAD, which is Mothers Against Drunk Driving. They've been constantly, well, they have some beta cucks that do the same thing, but they've been constantly trying to create this atmosphere of propaganda, and they've been very successful because the media and the government has been willing to work with them. So now they've got it to the point where even someone that has a drink or two, maybe even a lady that's had a glass of wine at lunch or two, or maybe a guy like myself that's had a few beer on my four-wheeler, we're now all criminals, regardless of what we actually did, regardless of what our acts entailed, regardless of how personally responsible and competent we may be in our driving skills. Collective punishment and these arbitrary numbers have basically, what are they at now? 0.05 or 0.08. I mean, the levels are so low now. Like I say, you could have just 1 or 2 or possibly even 3 drinks and be deemed impaired. Which, how do they know you're impaired? All they have to do nowadays is just show a couple pretenses that there are signs of impairment. No actual true measures to see if you are genuinely impaired. If your driving abilities are genuinely impaired to the point where you're a true danger to society or a danger on the roadway. No. It's all just these arbitrary numbers. And they're doing the same thing, and they're going to make a lot of fucking pot smokers get caught up in this same collective criminal net. Now, people nowadays are more aligned apparently to defend pot smokers, but nobody was defending fucking people that drink alcohol who've had their lives completely upended and destroyed as a result of these preemptive or collective punishments or these mandatory minimums that tries to throw a blanket over everyone and treat everyone the same, regardless of the facts of the case, regardless of competence, regardless of driving skills, regardless of whether there was an accident involved. All those things that should be of paramount importance to the legal system, like I say, that all gets tossed out the window. 800 years of judicial prudence has been thrown out the window for the sake of emotions and collective preemptive punishments and mandatory minimums. You pot smokers really need to stop fucking hating on people just because, like I say, it was okay when they came for the alcohol drinkers, right? Because I don't drink alcohol. But when they come for you, you're going to want us to defend you. And I'm actually defending you, dipshits. So you might want to return the fucking favor. I'm all about punishing someone if there's been an actual crime where some victim is involved. But like I say, every case should be, the outcome of a case should be completely and wholly determined on the facts of that particular individual case. Fuck this collective punishment. Fuck this preemptive bullshit. Fuck this mandatory minimum bullshit. We've seen how destructive it has been. The federal government plans to invest $81 million to train police officers to smoke out drivers impaired by pot across Canada while using a test experts say is flawed and that is being challenged in a U.S. court. Of course, the U.S. is always way ahead of the fucking game when it comes to dealing with these things. Canada, bunch of fucking laggard dipshits, but you're going to keep fucking criminalizing, punishing people regardless, right? Because you're too incompetent to stand on your own, Canada, to stand up. Maybe try being a bit of a fucking leader for once, a real leader. You know, leading about giving people actual freedoms and individual liberty. Not leaders. Canada's very much a leader as far as being authoritarian, petty fucking tyrants, but with a smile and a good handshake, right? An investigation by the Fifth Estate shows the tests done by police drug recognition experts can lead to false arrests, are prone to police bias, and according to one scientific expert, are no better at detecting drug-impaired drivers than flipping a coin. I mean, think about that. Flipping a coin. So basically 50-50. So basically, I guess. You can't hijack science in the name of law enforcement, says David Rosenblum, a clinical professor in the Department of Medicine at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario. We know that with high enough concentrations of marijuana in the blood that driving is impaired, so it's not that we don't need tests of impairment. It's just that we need valid tests of impairment, and at this point in time, we don't have them. And that's another thing. Before I continue on, what about all the fucking... How many people are out there driving down the road, you know, consuming these legal prescription drugs, opiate-based prescription drugs that are a lot worse and a lot more effective on your personal psychology, on your mentality, on your competence level than anything like marijuana or a few drinks of alcohol. The DRE test is a 12-step process that involves examining a suspect's vital signs, eyes, balance, and ability to concentrate, and then rendering an opinion. So, wholly subjective. And we've seen another thing, and I'll probably post a link to it in the description of this video, is the competence level to become an RCMP or police officer in Canada, even provincial police, have been greatly reduced. So these aren't people that have extremely high levels of competence in regards to determining whether you were truly impaired or not. These are, like I say, dipshits that have gone through the most basic minimal training. But they get to have the authority to determine whether you're a criminal or not. And it's in the absence of whether there's an actual crime or there's a victim involved. Like I say, people, you might have been willing to allow this shit to happen. You know, even back, I remember my parents and grandparents talking about the days back in the early 1900s when alcohol prohibition was normal. You know, when the government was fucking people just by consuming alcohol, not driving, just for having alcohol, just for consuming alcohol. Oh, they criminalized and punished and made a lot of people suffer needlessly just trying to use that heavy-handed authoritarian approach. Cigarettes. I mean, look at where we're at today. Cigarette smokers, government got involved in that. Now they're what, 68, 70% of the entire revenue or income generated from selling cigarettes goes to the government coffers. But yet the government tells you how terrible it is, but they're more than willing to enjoy the benefits of all that generated income and wealth that they get to steal and plunder the masses as a result of them consuming their vice of choice. For Rosenblum, the science of the test simply is not there. It's equivalent to flipping a coin. It's 50-50 as to whether we know the person was impaired or not. Taxpayers should be outraged. Meanwhile, the American Civil Liberties Union in Georgia recently launched what is believed to be the first civil challenge in the U.S. on behalf of 4 drivers wrongfully arrested by police officers trained as drug recognition experts. The ACLU has a warning for Canada. I think that Canadian police departments need to think twice about pouring millions or billions of dollars into a failed system that has not worked in the United States, says Sean Young, legal director for the ACLU in Georgia. And the taxpayers of Canada should be outraged that their precious dollars are being wasted on this program that just results in more innocent people being thrown in jail. Drug recognition experts have been operating in Canada since the 1990s. However, Canada is set to significantly increase their numbers as marijuana is legalized. So like I say, it's all about propagating and propping up this authoritarian system where they just use arbitrary numbers, edicts, and preemptive mandates to collectivize and criminalize large swaths of the population. Oh, Canada, you probably even know people. There's probably people in your own family or in your community or people that you know that have been greatly harmed and had their lives turned upside down from these preemptive, collective, mandatory minimum sentences. People like us that have had to suffer as a consequence, as a result of those bullshit authoritarian tactics. We're still willing to show solidarity and support for you people, you pot smokers, those of you who consume marijuana. But it is really incumbent on you to not just fight for your rights and your freedoms, but to fight for people like myself and our freedoms as well. That's how a true free society is supposed to function. My rights and freedoms requires that I respect your rights and freedoms. The minute anyone tries to negate or deny other people's freedoms is the minute that you're headed on that race to the lowest common denominator, where you want to criminalize me, then I'm going to try to criminalize you. And we all end up being criminalized, punished, and penalized needlessly, while the central planning authoritarians and the sociopathic control freaks in this country escape all of that shit and get to actually benefit economically as a result. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.